Bruno, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
It's good to see you. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Of course, now all people who are playing for Liverpool are everywhere in the world. But of course, when you played for Liverpool, you always follow Liverpool. But it's more difficult for all the fan of Liverpool based in Liverpool to follow everybody else. That's why that's good that you can have this kind of invitation. And thanks very much for the invitation.
No, no problem. No problem at all. Before we get into the Liverpool side of things, I want to talk to you about your early career, if that's okay, before LFC. So, when you was first picked up as a professional, when was that, and who was that?
It was in Lille. I was at the Academy of Lens, but unfortunately, for various reasons, I couldn't go through professional football at that time. But my brother signed at the same time in Lille as me, and I start my first season at the Academy, and then professional, and then Champions League football with Lille, and then my transfer to Liverpool in 2002, summer 2002.
Okay, so you're now the technical director at Lyon, is that right?
Yeah, I end my professional football career in 2012. I was playing for Nantes at that time, and I straight away was advisor of the chairman at the time was Valdemar Kita. And I knew when I was a player, I knew that I would like to remain in the football because I love so much the game, and I wanted to have some more responsibility. Not as a coach, because for me, coach it changed so quickly now, and you all depend of the ball goes in, you win a game, you lose a game, and I wanted more to have like a midterm project, like a sport director or general manager. That's why, as you said, I was for the last 3 years in Lyon in OL as a technical advisor. At the beginning, I was head of recruitment for men and women, and then I became a technical advisor, like a sport director for men and women, because in Lyon we had a very good women's team, and it was really important for us. I know Liverpool now got one also, but with Lyon, I think it was our former chairman 20 years ago believed a lot in development of women football. That's why I insist on the fact that I was also in charge of women football.
Okay, yeah. As you mentioned, the Lyon women's football team has been fantastic for a number of years now. Would you like to say that you played a good part in that?
No, to be honest, over the last 2 or 3 seasons, of course, about the recruitment, the way we try to handle things with the management, with the coaching staff and the players. But to be honest, we have to give all the credit to the former chairman, Jean-Michel Aulas. And as I told you, it was like really visionary. Do we say that in English?
Yeah,
a pioneer
visionary.
in the fact that he see that women football will develop so much, and he decided to invest a lot at a time where nobody knew that women could play football, to be honest. That's why we have to give him all the credit for that.
Okay, so you might have seen now that I wasn't going to ask this, but while we're on the subject, Liverpool have just moved their women's team into Melwood. That's a big move for the women's game over here, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but I think you have some big rival in Man United, Man City, Arsenal. They all give a lot to women football because, of course, in England, in general, with Women's Super League, I think you take the things properly with the professionalization of the league, with more money, and we know that means are really important even for women football. And of course, if you can give means, you can also give resources, you can also give some facilities. And I think, of course, it will be better for women to develop, to train better, to perform if they are training in a better conditions. And this is a good move for them to go to Melwood.
Okay, so you have a former Premier League and Champions League winner with you now at Lyon, Dejan Lovren. Do you ever talk about your time at Liverpool and his?
Of course, and I was a big part of his recruitment. To be honest, we were looking last season for big experience centre back, and we in France and in Lyon in particular, we knew, of course, Dejan, because before going to Southampton, he was playing for us for a while, and he's a great guy. He's a great player, and of course, when we talked about Liverpool, it creates something directly, a link, and it was maybe easier for me to convince him to join us in Lyon, to join us back in Lyon. But of course, yeah, it was good memories. Even if we didn't play together over there, it was good to talk about Anfield, about the Reds, his shirts, his history. This is something.
Yeah. So, around, well, not across Europe, but in England, the French league may be unfairly labelled and it gets called, let's say, a farmers league from over here. That's just a quote that I've heard, and it's a quote that is used. How does the French league take that next step into becoming more serious for an attractive proposition for players from not only England, but from Europe also?
So I totally agree with you about the fact that it's unfair that French league has been not rated as it should be. Of course, it's definitely below England, Germany, Spain, or Italy. That's for sure. But it's not the most spectacular league to watch, to play. But it's it's really a difficult league to play for. And when you see Leo Messi, Fabregas, or some big names, big players, they were really successful everywhere in different leagues. When they come over to France, the first thought, the first feedback that they said was that it's really difficult to play in France because of the physicality of the game. We have a lot of players coming from Africa, for instance, and they give a lot of intensity to the game, a lot of impact, especially in midfield. You don't have a lot of time to think about what you're going to do. So the next step for us would be to, I think, be better in European competition, to perform at that stage, because, and I was really well positioned to convince players to come over in France and to Lyon. It's easier if you say, for instance, if you compare to Sevilla or some clubs like that. I think we are with Lyon at the same level at some clubs like that. And we can convince players to come because we're going to win Europa League, or we're going to go for it in a Conference League, or we're going to play, of course, group stage in Champions League. I think it's really a good point for players to know that we can reach that. So I think this is the next step, to be able to perform in European competition, to attract better players, and to become a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, I feel like I understand what you're saying about the intensity, because the league cannot be as bad as people make out if the players from that league tend to come to England anyway. So like you said, it feels like an unfair label. Okay, so let's talk about your time at Liverpool then. It's 2002. You're playing for Lille at the time. Houllier is manager at Liverpool. How did the move come about to move to Liverpool?
Well, I had a good season in Lille, playing Champions League.
Scoring against Manchester United.
Yeah, I think that was a key point, to be honest. Especially for Gérard Houllier. I think when you have a little French guy able to score in Champions League against Man United, you have to scout him a bit more precisely, and that's what happened. I remember that early January or February, I had some good touch with Fulham. At that time, it was Jean Tigana, the coach. Mm. And I had Lyon also, and the final choice was between Lyon and Liverpool. This is a funny story, but this is it. And in 2002, it was the first season where Lyon won the league, and they were really dominant. You remember at the beginning of 2000s years in France, they win, I think, 7 titles in a row. So it was easy to choose Liverpool at that time, of course. But when you look after at the way that Lyon performed and dominate French league, and even in Europe, there were really some big contenders at that time. You said, okay, maybe Lyon could have been also a good choice.
Yeah. Okay. So Gerard mentioned you in his press conference, and you know where I'm going with this, and it must frustrate you so much. Or let's see how you feel. But he likened you to Zizou, one of the greatest players of all time. He said you had similar attributes, and obviously we then believed that we would have the next Zizou coming to Liverpool. Do you feel like when he said that gave unfair pressure, or did you think, okay, that's really good for me?
No, he killed me.
Did it?
Yeah, of course. And after I take it as an example for my life, actually, of a director to try to not put too much pressure about some players. So there is a way you talk about the new signings, for instance, to say, yeah, okay, it's a new Zidane or it's a new Ronaldo, and there is a price of the transfer fee. There are 2 points which can be really heavy for players to perform, because when you talk about a transfer fee and you have a player for 50 million pounds, of course you expect some fucking good things, great goals, assists, passing, and a lot of things like that. And if the same players arrive as a free agent or only 10 million euro, you don't have the same expectation. So your perspective and your vision of seeing him play is not the same. And of course, when Gérard Houllier, and I understand why he said that, because he wanted to create a lot of trust, a lot of confidence, a lot of positivity, dynamic around myself, around the new signing with Diouf and Salif Diao at that time. But it was not the right the right things to do. I'm not really a show-off player, or I prefer being in the shade and working as much as I can to create my space. But to have that kind of light out of me, it was not the best things for me.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. So when you signed, we wore this black and grey away kit, and I can remember saying to me dad, I want Cheyrou 28 on my shirt. So I've got that shirt still at home, Cheyrou 28, grey and black, and obviously I'm thinking we're going to get the next Zidane. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as you wanted and as Liverpool wanted at the club. You play 48 games, you score 5 goals, one of them being a massively important goal at Stamford Bridge. Brilliant play between yourself and Emile Heskey. Do you think about that? And at that time when you scored that goal, did you think, okay, this is it now for me?
Yeah, if you come back about the first season, for instance, just briefly, I remember I was quite hot. I was really confident and happy with the move, and I was really feeling good. And we played the first official game. The first big friendly was in Anfield against Lazio, where I played quite good. And the week after, it was a Community Shield in Cardiff against Arsenal. And I was really hoping for playing, and I think I was in a good shape to start. And Jaouli came before the game to see me and said, okay, so for a couple of weeks, you're going to sit on the bench, you're going to have a look of how it is. And he wanted to do the same thing Arsène Wenger did with Robert Pires. He was comparing us a lot about our positioning, about our quality, about everything. And he said, yeah, you have to sit down, look how it is, take the intensity, the pace of the game, and then after you will get in. I understand that, but I think it was a bad point also. Afterward, it's easy to say it, but I was so on a good way, on a good move, that I should have keep it going, as you say.
Yeah.
And because after, when you don't play for a couple of weeks, and you played for Liverpool, that you play each 3 days, you can't train. Because if you play on a Saturday and you have Champions League game on Tuesday or Wednesday, on the next day of Saturday, you can't work too hard because maybe you're going to play on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then it's the same thing for the next game, and it's the same thing for the next game. So I was getting in for 15, 20 minutes, but you can't have really the pace of the game during 15 or 20 minutes at the end. And then I remember, I think my first game in the first 11 was in Bolton or something like that. But after 30 minutes, I was dead because I didn't have the pace of the game. I didn't have the fitness game because I was sitting on the bench for 2 months and I couldn't do too much during training session to catch the pace up, So it was tough. And then, of course, you need some adaptation. So the first season could have been the adaptation year where we finished, I think, fourth. We were in the League Cup. So it was not a bad season collectively. And we had a good run in Champions League, that Europa League. We went out because of Diouf against Tottenham.
We're gonna talk about him later.
Okay. And then the second season, I was really working hard during pre-season, workouts during summertime and everything. I started the first game against Chelsea in Anfield, and then I had a really sore and bad back problem, which put me out for 2 or 3 months. And then when I get back, I don't know if you know the story about that, but I went with the reserve team playing in Blackburn after 3 months out, and I was supposed to play only 45 minutes. And just before half time, at 44th minute, I had a challenge in the air, and the big center back step up on my tooth, and I had my broken tooth, so out again for 2 months. So this is not about quality. This is not about talent. It's a bit about of luck,
Luck, yeah.
And then we arrived at this Stamford Bridge game. Away, I played with Emileski up front. It was during, I think, January, with a lot of games. You know that in wintertime, Boxing Day, all that stuff. So it was really heavy at that time, and so we changed a lot of the teams with a lot of rotation. And I remember I played with Emileski up front, and we win away, and I was lucky enough to score that goal. And after I had a good run, I think I scored against Wolverhampton. I scored a double against Newcastle at home in English Cup. So that was a good time for me. But in Liverpool, you have so many good players that if you don't have, or if you have 1 or 2 or 3 bad performances, you have some Michael Owens get in, Danny Murphy get in, or Milan Barros. Or we had so many good and talented players that you have to perform each game, otherwise it's tough.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's just from a fan looking in from afar. Obviously, you mentioned a couple of things there with luck and timing and stuff. So, do you believe that you continuing the momentum instead of being sat on the bench would have helped you? Is that how you feel as a footballer, that would have worked better?
At the beginning, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the beginning, I thought it could have been good, but once again, Gérard Houllier, I understand totally the way he managed the roster, the group. I was just a new signing, and he had a midterm project for me. It was not to be starting the next game, but it's always easier to say that afterwards. But I mean, it could have been better handled, but I don't have any regrets. That's the way it is, and that's football,
Good. I like that. So, lastly, on your time at Liverpool, obviously Houllier is sacked as Liverpool manager after a brilliant time at the club. Let's be honest with ourselves here. He's given me some of my greatest memories as a Liverpool supporter. So, and rest in peace, Gerrard, as well, because it's sad that he's no longer with us. Rafa Benitez came to the club, and I've spoke to a lot of ex-players and they've all sort of said the same thing. Now, when he arrived, he almost seemed to push you out the door, let's say, and sent you to Marseille. Is that how it was? Did he have any discussions with you, or was it a case of you're not for me, move on?
No, I think that, once again, it was not against me. It was more about changing the way of the Liverpool roster was built, and with Gerard Houllier, who was a bit more French-speaking colony, as we say it, and with Rafa Benitez, he needed to give his own inputs, impact on the team, on the rosters, on the new signing. So you well seen after that he brought a lot of Spanish players. So that was normal. And once again, it's football. But I had some good discussion with Rafa Benitez, and he didn't want to get rid of me. It was just a matter of opportunities for me, for Liverpool. And I needed to be back in France. I think at that time, I was not anymore too much called up with French national team, and I thought that if I go to Marseille, which is really popular in France, could have helped me out to get back with my French national team. So no regrets neither. Of course, when you look at it, 2004, 2005, I was on loan in Marseille, and that was the great year of Liverpool winning the Champions League again, but this is it.
This, like you said, this is football, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why, sometimes I say there is no bad players. It's tough to be a professional football player. And sometimes it doesn't depend of yourself. Of course, some top big players, they can be successful anywhere, but you just need to get the right coach, the right environment, the right club. And I truly believe that there are some good players, but they don't fit in any teams in the world. And you look at the biggest one in the world, like Messi, he didn't fit too much in Paris Saint-Germain. I'm not sure it could have been better in England if he come over to Premier League. I'm not sure that he could have been as successful as he was in Barcelona, because the team was really shaped for him. So, and he was the best player of the world, maybe at that time. So, yeah, this is football.
Okay, so I have a couple of just quick questions before we finish. You have a player at Lyon, and he's a very, very talented boy. Now, I might pronounce his name completely different than you, which I probably will, but Ryan Cherki, how do we say that? Where you're from, first of all?
Ryan Cherki, no, you did it perfectly.
Okay, so how far do you think he can go in the game? Because, like, from a football manager expert like myself, he's a very talented boy, and I've seen plenty of clips of him. Do you think he can go far?
He's different. He's totally different. When I started to be in charge in Lyon, Peter Bosz was a coach. He could say the same thing as you, that Cherki has some talent, but he's not decisive enough. His end product is not good enough, and for high level it will not be enough. So I had to fight a little bit against Peter to try to convince him that he's a talent. And if he would have played for Nice, Rennes, Lille, or another team, we would have been recruiting him if we could have. So we have him at home. It's our responsibility to try to make him come as good as we expect him to become. So, of course, like all the talented players, they're always special also in management-wise. So it's not that easy to make him understand a few things, but he's a lovely guy. And for me, he's one of the biggest talent we have in France and in Europe. So I think he can be a player for a top team, for the top 10 team of Europe. So he can be a player for Liverpool. I don't know if it was one of your...
Is this an exclusive? Can you do that? Can you help?
But he's expensive, huh? You must get out the money for him, huh?
We don't like to do that. Okay, a couple more questions. One we sort of touched on. El Hadji Diouf, he's upset a lot of Liverpool supporters and players over the years. What was he actually like to share a dressing room with?
It's a bit different. My relation with Diouf was not the same as some other players, of course.
Is this French speaking? Is that why?
Yeah, French speaking, and I knew him from before.
Okay.
And I was really straight with him. So the first time it was a bit tough together, but that the way after he was respecting me much more than maybe some other people. And I think, and now I see him a lot. I used to go to Senegal because we have an academy with Lyon in Senegal. So each time I go to Dakar, I call him. I had a dinner with him, and only one dinner. 2 dinners, it's too much, but 1 dinner is enough. And sometimes I have to pay also, so it's another story. But anyway,
of course.
No, but I understand that it can upset some Liverpool fans or some other teammates. I understand totally, because it was, as I said about Cherky, it was a bit different, the way he acts. And of course, we all remember different stuff against Celtic, for instance, or many others. So I couldn't be really happy with all what he's done so far, that's for sure. I was really, really upset with him also sometimes. But we always had a real respectful relation. So I like him.
Okay, we'll leave it there. What was it like to share a dressing room with arguably my favourite footballer of all time at Liverpool, is Steven Gerrard?
Yeah, that was great. That was just unbelievable. When people ask me who was the best player you played with, I always mention 2 players, Zinedine Zidane and Steven Gerrard.
Yeah.
Not the same kind of players, not the same qualities, not the same impacts, but Stevie G was really inspiring. I think this is really the good words for Stevie G to be mentioned. He had so much energy, he has so much power to spread out all over the other people. And I think I played in 2002, 2003, when Gerard Houllier changed the armband from Sami Hyypiä to Stevie G. And that was a big thing, but it was really an honor, and I was really proud to play alongside him. And I saw him again a couple of times because, of course, and he was with Rangers, so we had to talk about some players from Lyon or from Rangers. So we keep a good relation, and I'm really happy with that. And no, I remember I was working for beIN Sports during World Cup, and he was having the press conference the day before the game, and I was with all the other journalists, so it was a full conference press room. And at the end, I didn't know he saw me, but he came to me. So he basically walked through all the journalists, so they were like that, and he came to me to say hi to me and to speak a few minutes with me. So it tells you how big he is.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. It's nice to hear. Okay, lastly, when are we going to see you at Anfield? Are you ever going to get involved in these Legends games?
Yeah, I think I played 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I scored a goal. I think we drew 2-2, something like that. Last year, I was invited. I couldn't come because of my activity with OL, and it's not always that easy to try to find sometimes. Yeah, politically, but also to find really some free time to be able to play that kind of game. I would love to play some more often and to come over to Anfield, to Liverpool, to meet my former teammates. It's always some good memories to share all together. So I hope that one day I can come back again. I came last year with my son, who is a big football fan and, of course, Liverpool fan. And we came for Liverpool-Chelsea. I think it was end of January, something like that. And I think that was really important for me to bring him to Anfield, where I played, and to show him how big the club is,
Yeah.
and how important it is for all the community and for this area of Great Britain. So, of course, if you invite me, I will come over all the time.
I'll see what I can do. Now, okay, Bruno, let's call it a podcast there. First of all, thanks very much for taking your time out of such a busy career that you have to share your stories and your thoughts on Liverpool. It's very much appreciated, and I wish you all a luck in your role at Lyon.
Thank you very much, and yes, of course, all the best for you also and for Liverpool. And yes, this is the proper sentence for Liverpool, but we'll never walk alone, and this is how I feel all the time.
Thank you. Thank you. Catch you soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.